All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Helen Duca. I am the current co-chair for the Events and Professional Development Committee with the Ohio Transfer Council. I'm excited to be sharing this webinar with everyone on the call today. The webinar is engaging campus partners with OTC. Before we get started, just to let folks know, the meeting is being recorded. We have on the call today Jonathan Gates, our current OTC president, who will be moderating the webinar. So if you have any issues, please drop them in the chat, but also utilize the chat for your questions. So just to kind of give a little introduction about our webinar this morning, I think that creating a climate of transfer requires engagement and awareness, not only from our sending and receiving institutions, but from an entire campus community. I think supporting our transfer students should be a responsibility that is shared institutionally, not just the individual that may have a transfer specific title. So our transfer counselors, our transfer advisors, our transfer specialist. So I'm so excited that we have a wide range of panelists with us today, representing, both 2-year and 4-year partner institutions, but then also from a range of areas across their campus areas. So today with us, we have Brittany Crosio with who not only co-chairs the OTC recruitment committee, but she serves as the executive director of TRIO with Eastern Gateway Community College.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks. Also from Eastern Gateway Community College, supporting the student support services area is Carissa Henry. Thank you so much for being here, Carissa.
Thank you.
We have Yolanda Hart, who is a senior academic advisor from Miami University. So again, thank you for joining. And then last but not least, we have Tim McCarragher, who is joining us from the University of Akron and serves as the director of the School of Social Work and Family Sciences.
Thank you. Good morning.
So thank you all for being with us. So kind of to start this conversation I wanted to ask how you all first heard about Ohio Transfer Council in the first place.
I can start. I heard about OTC. I've been working with TRIO for 5.5 years now, and about, a year into me working in my position, I started to see the importance of our students transferring, because at the time I was working for our SSS grant, and one of the objectives of SSS is to graduate and transfer students. So when we were starting to see that we didn't have so many students transferring, I started looking for a few more resources on how we could help. And I did find the Ohio Transfer Council. After that, the pandemic kind of hit, and then actually OTC started doing the free membership that year. And then I signed up at that point and have been here ever since. And it's been super helpful for networking specifically, as well as just having a hands-on ability to have information about transfer for our low-income first-gen students.
I'll go next. Yolanda Hart. I've been involved for almost 10 years. Quite a few colleagues mentioned OTC when I came on board at Miami in the Office of Advising. And the more I got involved with being one of the first advisors students saw when they transferred to one of the regional campuses, the more I knew this was an organization I wanted to tap into. So it's been about 10 years, and it's been great because I've been able to not only understand my perspective as an advisor, but also the perspectives of registrar, persons leading partnerships and articulations, and faculty in how we onboard and develop these agreements to help transfer students.
Thank you.
I can jump in. So Brittany's my direct supervisor, and she's been talking about OTC pretty heavily for the last year. And this is one of my first experiences directly with OTC, so I'm happy to be here. And part of my role in TRIO SSS, we call ourselves TRIO Scholars, is we have a conversation with almost every single one of our students on how important it is to graduate community college and then transfer to go on to get that bachelor's degree. So she's really been talking about OTC this year and how that can help and support, our goals.
And my perspective is a bit different. I've been the director of the School of Social Work at Akron for about 16 years. And then the last 3.5 years, I served as the interim dean for the College of Health and Human Sciences. And as I worked not only with my discipline, but across other disciplines in the college, I realized how important the transfer advisors were, how important their work was, and what they did to work for a seamless transition from community colleges to a four-year program. So the more I understood how important it was, I really wanted to better understand the organization and what I could do to contribute.
Thanks so much. That's such a great introduction. Thanks, everybody. I think this next question that I have for the group kind of tapped into some of what's been shared. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the experiences that you've had as through OTC, whether it's more of, how you've been involved maybe in a leadership capacity, or some of the, experiences you've had, if it's just been like maybe attending some of the different professional development opportunities that there's been. We can go in that same order if we want to start with Brittany and then go through.
Yeah, so I think that I think it was during the pandemic, because I remember Kim Snowden and I forget who else was in the meeting, but I was put onto the committee, and I remember being in my kid's bedroom. So that's why I know it was during the pandemic. We had a meeting, and then I really enjoyed it, and I liked coming from a different perspective, because everything that I had seen so far was really just transfer advising in OTC. So I feel like I had a little bit different of a perspective. The next year I was, nominated for the co-chair position. And since then, it's been nice. I really like being on the recruitment side because, and everyone will tell you, I am really trying to get, TRIO really more involved in OTC, because I think about how important, transfer is for not only our objectives, but our students as well. And there's so much valuable information that is shared, especially during conference. It's a lot of fun too. And yeah, I have just really appreciated kind of coming from a different perspective and, being able to give my perspective and as well as receive. It's been really great working for a community college and receiving, support from the four-year institutions. It's been a really great experience.
My first experiences were actually at the annual conference in June. So that was just a really good experience to see others across the state who have a passion for transfer students and making sure students get to use the credit they've already completed, making the most of their credit rather than having to start over with programs. And to see that some of the same issues I was struggling with, other advisors or other staff roles were also thinking about the same issues. And then, the successes across the state in terms of, how Transfer 36, trying to, advocate for that, but also make sure that our institutions were implementing it in an efficient way, that students who qualified for it were still getting the benefits of it. From being a participant in the conferences, I moved on to present at one of the conferences with a group of colleagues of mine at Miami. So not only it gave me the opportunity for professional development, but it also gave that group of us at Miami Regionals an opportunity to spend some time really thinking through what we were doing with transfer students and what we could share with others that maybe helped them. Then network's another good opportunity that comes from from my experience with OTC. So some activities I've been in may not be directly OTC events, but it was because of the people I met at OTC that, I was able to participate with a group of advisors in Southwest Ohio, and us trying to improve our communication across offices about transfer students. And then by default, we're helping our students transition better.
Okay, my answer is short and sweet. This is my first direct experience with OTC. We've definitely heard about when Brittany went to the conference last year and information she brought back for us, as a staff in all our TRIO programs at Eastern Gateway. So I'm happy to be here having this first direct experience.
And actually also relatively new as well. My work in social work, I'm the coordinator for the tag process for the discipline of social work. So I worked with all of the programs across the state in terms of getting courses approved. So I'm very familiar with transfer students going across from 2 or 4 year programs, but I'm new to OTC, so looking forward to getting more involved.
Thanks. And I think that's one of the really great pieces too, is that just to kind of share that, OTC is something that it is really can be for everyone. It doesn't, not to be intimidated if you've never, if you haven't fully engaged yet, maybe it's just the membership, but we can see here, there's a lot, the ripple effect, I think, is big. So, and again, we've already kind of touched on some of these things, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about how the work that each of you do is impacted by transfer students. I know that we've alluded a little bit, but if you like to maybe expand on that topic.
I will say that working with OTC gave me a lot more confidence in the area of transfer advising and transfer admissions. So after working with OTC, I think for a year, I think it was last summer, I went to my team and I said, look, I think we really need to get serious about making sure we are supporting our students who want to transfer from the first moment that they come to us, because as everyone knows, it's not a super, we try to make it as easy as possible, but especially our students who are first gen and low income, they don't always know what's involved. So from there, we created a program called the Transfer Opportunity Program for our TRIO Scholars, TRIO SSS students. And, using my knowledge from OTC and from the conferences and, just from, really being able to network with everyone at 4-year institutions, we created this program to where the first step to, they tell us that they're interested in transfer, and we start right there with them. If they don't know what they want to do, we start with a career assessment, and we work all the way. They can finish the program in 6 months, or it can take them the 2 years that they're at Eastern Gateway to go through this program. And we help them all the way through, getting admission fee waivers, and, beyond. We help them with their financial aid, and we work as basically a holistic support for these students, so they don't really have to go everywhere. So I email, transfer admissions directly. My team emails transfer admissions directly. We advocate for our students, and it's just been really great to have the confidence and the knowledge that I have now to be able to support our students.
The impact is that really transfers is not just something that I do every spring and fall when we admit new students now. It's something that's really part of the daily experience in the office. So for me, when I'm in meetings or discussing policy, getting briefed on academic changes and updates, the question always comes to mind: how does this impact the transfer student? And if there's not, if there's a potential adverse effect or transfer hasn't been considered as something that is brought up, or contemplated to see if there's some suggestions that can be made to make sure transfers aren't negatively impacted. But I also think too, the podcast and the webinars that OTC does, being aware of those and then sharing it with my colleagues who meet with transfer students, maybe not as often, but it's good for them to have that information. And then also making sure to share some trends of what's going on in the state on transfer students. One, to motivate my other colleagues, but also to make sure that we're abreast of the most current information.
And I'll just go a little beyond what Brittany said as she was talking. I wrote a few things down. So yes, we do have the Transfer Opportunity Program that we offer our TRIO Scholar students, but I think it goes even farther than that. We started integrating it in our orientation. So when students come into TRIO Scholars, they know that transferring is an option. They know right off the bat what questions they can ask or should ask, either at the community college level or the transfer school that they're looking at, or multiple transfer schools that they're looking at. So we kind of give them the tools, the questions, guides, almost like a step-by-step process right from the beginning of, hey, here's something to think about. You might not have ever thought about transferring before, but look how easy of a process this can be, and kind of look at this information. You might not have ever thought about transferring, but take a look at this, and we can help you. We can provide you the support along the way. We can, like Brittany said, email those individuals and institutions for you, or take this information yourself and follow the process as a self-guided process. So both ends of that.
I think from my perspective, it's rather than kind of a day in, day out, I guess I would narrow it down to relationships. Is that from my perspective, we have branch campuses at Wayne College and then at Lakewood, and then main campus where our students and social work are at 3 different sites. And working with transfer students is really about relationships. We have to have relationships with the community colleges where our students start. A huge proportion of our students are transfer students. And it does make a difference for me to know the faculty at those branch campuses and for the advisors to know those advisors. When a student comes up to you and talks about being a transfer student, if you're able to say, oh, you had Professor so-and-so and you're aware of that, it makes a difference. The students are aware that you are in a relationship, that you understand where they're coming from and what they've learned. It does make a big difference. So from my perspective, looking at inviting 2-year students who might be 4-year students to career fairs and to events on campus for them to get a chance to better understand where they might attend in the future. And even for 4-year programs to go to community colleges, to have a table where students can ask questions or even come and speak to classes. There's a number of the community colleges where our faculty will go and talk about a 4-year social work degree, and this is what some options are for you. So when students see that as a relationship, they know this is a seamless connection because everybody knows each other. And it does make a difference because if there's that breakdown in communication between the 2-year and the 4-year, students recognize maybe I should consider somewhere else.
And to add on to that, I also think that that's absolutely true. Being able to, connect students directly, they're less likely to fall out. They're less likely to never come back. When you have that type of support, they are, they have that person. We try our hardest to not just say like, okay, see you later. You know what I mean? We really try to say, this is this person, this is this person, this is what you need to do. And it might sound handholdy, but again, we have a very specific population of students that probably have never even thought about college before. But even more than that, we know how communication is in higher ed. So when you can have financial aid know a little bit about transfer, and the registrar, of course, the registrar knows about transfer, but when everybody can work together, I mean, there's even a piece at the community college level of student activities being on board and assisting students and just starting the conversation about transfer around everybody doesn't make it seem so scary. So, we talk a lot about what are your barriers. We recognize that students have barriers, whether it's location or money, or do they have kids? And we see all of that at the community college level, and we talk to them about that, and we give them manageable expectations moving forward. So I just think that this webinar about engaging the entire campus, there is a piece of every campus that could get something from being involved in OTC, and whether that's just to talk about transfer and again make it seem attainable for students, for all students. I really think that that's super important to the campus community as a whole.
So perfect. Such a good segue. Because the next question I wanted to ask the group is, if you were talking with somebody who's not in OTC, what would you say to them to potentially encourage them that this membership would be a valuable experience for them?
Well, I feel like this is the opportunity to plug.
Mhm.
We are right now really would be a great time for people to join, because our membership is only $12.50 until July 1st, where you can then renew for the $25. But to get a sense of what we do, this is just a really great time for that. I would just tell people, like Tim said, the networking in and of itself is invaluable. Of course, there's great information, but I to reiterate, when you are able to connect one person with another, they're least likely to fall out of the pipeline. So I think that's one of the really valuable things.
I would say working with transfer students, you want to be sure that you're not in a silo, either within your department or within your own institution, because there's so many moving pieces. And it's also an area where you always want to be innovative and looking at how you can better serve your students. So OTC provides an opportunity for someone in higher ed to learn more, sharpen your skills, gain more knowledge, and you have an opportunity to be engaged with OTC where you want to be. If you want to be part of leadership, want to be on a committee, that's possible. It doesn't matter what your position is at your institution. But also, if at the moment what you're seeking is just information to help improve services at your institution, you've got a network and some resources that the organization does provide. So I would encourage anyone to give OTC a try, and most likely you won't it won't be one of the organizations that you try once and leave. You'll probably stick around. I've gotten a lot of great information from participating, and also have made connections with a lot of people across the state who are transfer champions.
Since this is one of my first experiences with OTC, everybody can see that Brittany, just being one person, was able to attend OTC events, be on the podcast, and then come back and share with her whole team about OTC. So even if just one person of your team can attend events, can join, can go, then that person can share with the rest of their staff, team, just what's going on to help those students who want to transfer.
I would agree with what pretty much everyone said, especially Yolanda was talking about silos. I think that is really important. That's a really important point to make because it's very easy. We're all so busy. Everyone has very specific tasks. It's a temptation to sort of stay where you are. I think this is a great opportunity to learn from each other because when you think of the collective wisdom in this group of people who have worked in the transfer community and what they've done, I think it's a great opportunity to learn and to network.
Thanks, everybody. So kind of in preparation for this webinar, one of the things that I kind of found for myself was thinking, you know, I wasn't 100% sure within, you know, my own institution who had a current membership. So when we think about trying to identify the populations at our own school that could be bolstered with OTC representation, having an idea of who's already a member is helpful. So I think that's maybe one piece of advice. If you are, you know, interested in trying to engage more people on your campus in OTC, but you're not sure maybe who's a member and who's not, you know, I think that we are lucky to have Brittany on our webinar today, who is representing that recruitment and membership piece. So if you are able to reach out to Brittany, or Greg Landis is our other like recruiting membership member, and ask for, you know, the current membership for your school, that can kind of be a good piece to also like help connect and maybe share, help spread maybe that engagement, because everybody on this call is a transfer advocate, a transfer champion, I would say. So if we look at the membership roster and think, you know, I know there's some folks who aren't maybe members, but they definitely like are a great transfer advocate on my campus, start the conversation with there, perhaps with, you know, talking about OTC, or if you see a really big blind spot of an area on campus that really isn't being represented through OTC, maybe, you know, that's another pitch of, you know, we have this really great opportunity and you could share this information with the other areas or the other people who are on your team. I think that's a really great way to approach it personally. On top of all of the great things everyone shared.
Can I add something else?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So recently, for National Transfer Student Week, you know, everyone's talking about transfer champions. One of the things that the team came up with was to identify people at Eastern Gateway that have supported our students in some capacity for transferring. We also had students nominate transfer champions. So, you know, we gave a brief definition of this is what a transfer champion is. Tell me a little bit about how they helped you. And then we also, you know, nominated people such as like our director for accessibility services, the PTK director that is also the director of the business school, all of these different areas of students that of staff and faculty that really help with the transfer process. From there, what we made were like certificates that we emailed to them, you know, thanking them for everything that they've done. And I've never, like, if you're trying to boost morale, that is the way to do it. Because I reached out to these people and they were so thankful. They didn't realize. I had one person respond like, I needed this today because I was really feeling like all of my work is for nothing. And it was super nice to kind of make sure, like, now that they've received that, they're going to think about transfer even more. They're going to keep that in the back of their mind that, like, wow, I helped one person. How many people, you know, can I help just by talking about it? So even more than OTC, just facilitating the conversation about transfer, and again, making it seem so much less scary. And if you do want to do some sort of like transfer champion campaign, like I said, I mean, it was like a huge morale boost for the institution and in some capacity. And that's how you get people on your team. That's how you break down those silos to, play nice and, appreciate the other people that, work and help your students. I mean, the certificates took me 10 minutes to make and another hour to email everybody. It was very, low work, but I mean, we've really been impacted by the results, especially like we would send them to faculty members that maybe they didn't get nominated, but we reach out to them a lot to help us answer questions. So, we're recognizing you for helping us help them. So that's another idea to, continue to engage those people on your campus, to help yourself at the end of the day.
That's such a great idea. I love that whole campaign. My
I stole it
panelists,
from somewhere. I know we didn't come up with it. I
I'll
know
send
it
the
comes
cops.
from somewhere else, but
do my other panelists have any want to share anything else before we maybe see if there's some questions in the group? All right, I'm going to check the chat and see if we have, and to everybody on the webinar, please feel free to add any questions or comments. If you have something that you're doing at your institution that seems to be, working really well in terms of, engaging others in transfer and OTC, we'd love to hear it. Yeah, drop those questions. I'm gonna go back and scroll through a little bit. Moderator comments. Brittany, you got a shout out from University of Toledo for your intervention and providing the wraparound services. So shout out Brittany and Carissa there.
We're of course in like we have a different perspective because our grant only serves 165 students. So we do have the privilege of being able to provide those services to every single student. Of course, we know not all transfer advisors or academic advisors are in that position, but we do have such a small cohort that they're able to do that as much as possible.
I'm not seeing any major questions, but I am just going to kind of also do a little reminder right now. Oh, we have a second. So wanting to share my makeshift flyer. But just as a reminder, we do have half price membership available now. So now through July 1st, membership is only $12.50. So again, very low ask there for a lot of benefit. That includes these webinars, information through the podcast, PodTC, and then of course, folks will still get the reminder of our annual conference, which has been set for June 14th. And we've also set the location for Ohio Dominican University. The registration for the conference will be coming soon, early spring. But that membership, or that when you register for the conference, that will include membership for the year. So the half price membership does cover through July 1st, but the membership included in the conference will be for that following year. So wanting to share that. And then, sorry, I'm looking to stop sharing my screen. I have multiple split screens. There we go. Thanks. Thank you, moderator. And just another note too, for our conference, while we haven't set the keynote speaker for the conference yet, that's another really great aspect, I think, of OTC is the education that it brings. And the keynote speaker is has traditionally been just this wealth of information from a really usually unique perspective. And that's one of the things I always really look forward to at the conference, in addition to the networking and some of the great like sessions that are had, but the keynote speaker is always very like top tier. So I think there's just so much value to what OTC has to offer. And even, you know, it's just the keynote speaker alone. I think that that's like something that I wish more people had the opportunity of seeing. Yeah. I think Jonathan is trying to taunt us with, I know some people have some more questions. So
yeah, last year the keynote speaker was Heather Adams from Transfer Nation, and she was so good. Like it re-sparked something within me, and she's super present on social media too. So you know, seeing her and everything that they do, like engaging their students was just, I mean, it was really cool. I really liked that. That was our keynote last year.
There was so much like wonderful data and research presented. And I think that's something that usually the keynote does like amazing on. Like there's always really great like analysis of the data and research and how it impacts the different institutions. So we have a question. Do your institutions share transfer data with stakeholders on campus, like faculty? If anybody wants to take a stab at answering that question.
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. I don't know that we do. If
I'll jump in, Brittany.
Go ahead.
Sometimes we feature it in our newsletters. We have a newsletter that comes out usually once a semester or more in the past. And oftentimes, at least once a year, we would, you know, brag about our TRIO program and how many of our students were able to transfer. So at least our small program has in the past.
At the regionals, that's Hamilton and Middletown campus, we've got a system in place where live from the time a student is admitted through their first advising appointment, there's data available to the departmental stakeholders. So not all faculty have access, but there's a representative. Typically, it's the lead advisor in that academic department. So they can see real time how many transfer students they have coming in. Has the student responded to orientation? Have they completed their advising, and are they registered? And we found that having that cross communication has been helpful because we all know some students don't follow the guidelines or process you give them. Sometimes they end up in the admission office when they should be seeing advising, or they end up with advising and admission is still incomplete. So that cuts down on a lot of the back and forth for students, because anyone who's in these processes can see where the student actually is and then help them. Within that communication too, I forgot to mention the registrar's office is involved. So we're able to see, you know, if a student shows up, that transcripts are in and they are evaluated.
Yeah, Akron's very similar to that. That information is shared with deans and department chairs, and then it's shared with faculties. I'm on one of the committees for the transfer experience, and that was actually just discussed yesterday, the top 10 programs that students transferring into the University of Akron.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for sharing on covering the University of Akron's answer on that. Thank you. University of Toledo shared that they do share among different stakeholders, from presidents to students, trying to bring focus with reminders of transfer success during National Transfer Student Week, which I think is great. I know that we also worked on doing some ramped up programming for National Transfer Student Week, and I was with one of a different like campus partner stakeholder yesterday who just shared like, yeah, the social media coverage on that was really good. So sometimes I say like it's the small wins, of, they're catching it on social media, huge win. Okay. Candace Grant from ODHE just shared in the chat. We recently read an article entitled Challenges for Successful Transfer from Community to Bachelor's Colleges. College's View of Staff and Faculty with Transfer Responsibility. It was a study of CUNY and had some interesting findings about what faculty do or don't know about transfer and how it can affect students. And then there was an article about the study on September 7th. So again, amazing, great sharing of resources happening in the OTC community, even in this webinar beyond. So thank you for sharing that. That definitely would be an interesting read.
I think that
afterwards.
That kind of just gave me an idea. I know in the spring and in the fall, our faculty has like a welcome back week where, they do some professional development during that week. And, for the transfer advising, if you don't already, I don't think they receive it from our transfer department. But if there's a way for you to speak to faculty during that time, that could be really helpful and share that data that you do have. And again, I've said it till I'm blue in the face about, just talking about it. Just talking about it makes it, easier to swallow for students. That's a really good idea.
Kim Avery shared, there are many transfer articles on transfer from inside higher ed that I receive. Many of those articles include data from a variety of sources, like NSC. We've got some of the links to the articles that are being referenced in the chat. Amazing. Melissa Slafford, OTC, shared last Tri-C Colloquium offered a webinar with a panel of business faculty from four-year schools about what faculty want in business transfer students. So that's an amazing idea of ways to engage, help kind of incentivize the different stakeholders in a way that, engages them in a way that they want to be engaged almost. So asking for their input in a way that might be outside of the usual asks that are being made. So I think that's a great thing to have done, Melissa, and Tri-C in general. That's a really great idea. Let's see. All right. So as we are kind of reaching, top of the hour, I suppose, I kind of want to do a last call for questions, last minute thoughts. As it seems like the chat maybe be, calming down, but last call, I guess. Well, I want to thank everybody who has taken the time out to, participate and listen to this webinar. Again, I think everyone here is a transfer champion themselves. So I appreciate you giving us, your time this morning. Thank you to our panelists, Brittany, Tim, Carissa, Yolanda. I really appreciate you, sharing your experience, your passion, and your advice as well. A lot of really great ideas, both from our panelists and to those who have been tuning in. So I really appreciate the collaboration. I think it's a really great example of, you know, what happens when you are in OTC and engaged with the transfer advocates. So thank you, everyone. And with that, I'm going to wrap the webinar. And I'll look forward to seeing folks in the spring, either through the conference or through the webinars that we'll have planned. So thank you.
Thank you, Helen.